There's a service your mechanic has been recommending for years that costs between $89 and $250, takes 30 minutes, and, according to every major automotive engineering organisation, does almost nothing your car actually needs. They call it a flush. And there are at least 3 versions of it on every shop menu right now: the power steering flush, the fuel system flush, the engine oil flush, 3 separate line items, 3 separate profits. One collective problem: your manufacturer never asked for any of them, and the people recommending them either know that or were trained not to ask. But here's what I want you to stay for, because the title told you there are also 2 services that actually matter. 2 that most drivers skip or confuse with the scams. 2 that, if you neglect them long enough, will cost you between $3,000 and $6,000 in a single repair bill. I'm going to tell you exactly what they are, what they cost, and how to get them done without getting sold something else on top of them. I spent 15 years in the used car business. Wholesale buyer, auction lane regular. I've sat in service bays watching reconditioning invoices get written for cars we'd just bought. And the gap between what the shop billed and what the car actually needed was not an accident. It was a system. And I watched it work every single time, on every single vehicle, until I got tired of watching it. So let's go through all 5, the 3 that are mostly theatre, and the 2 that aren't. Start with the one I saw misrepresented more than any other in my career: the power steering flush. The pitch sounds responsible. We noticed your power steering fluid is dark. We recommend a flush to protect the pump and maintain your steering response. Costs between $89 and $150. Takes 20 minutes. Here's what they don't mention first. The vast majority of vehicles built after 2012 use electric power steering, not hydraulic. Electric. There is no fluid, no pump, no reservoir. The system is a motor on the steering column connected to a control module, so when a service advisor recommends a power steering flush on a 2015 Toyota Camry or a 2016 Honda CR-V, they are recommending a service for a system that does not exist in that vehicle. I've watched this happen at dealer service lanes, at quick lube chains, and at independent shops that should have known better. For older trucks, certain full-size SUVs, and some performance cars, yes, hydraulic power steering systems exist, and the fluid can degrade. But even there, the manufacturer's own documentation almost never calls for a flush. Honda's service manual says inspect, not flush, not replace on a schedule, inspect. Dark fluid is not a warning. Dark fluid is fluid that has been doing its job. The flush machine is real. The service takes place. But the need for most vehicles on any kind of interval is not in the engineering documentation. What is in the documentation is someone's profit calculation. That's the first one, and it's the easiest to deflect, because all you need to know is whether your car has hydraulic or electric steering. Check your owner's manual, or just Google your year, make, model, and power steering type. That's a 30-second search that saves you $120. Now let me tell you something I've never put on camera before. When I was reconditioning cars at wholesale, buying at auction, cleaning them up, moving them to retail, we had a preferred shop we used for a period of time. Good location, decent turnaround. The service manager there had a policy. Every vehicle that came through got a fuel system flush and a power steering flush added to the invoice. Every one, whether it needed it or not. Whether the car was 2006 or 2013. Whether it had hydraulic steering or electric. The flush appeared on the paperwork. He told me once, and I remember the exact phrasing. Nobody ever comes back to complain that the flush didn't work. He was right. You can't measure the absence of a problem. The car ran fine after the flush, but it would have run fine without it, and there's no way for the customer to ever know the difference. That's not an accident of the service. That's the architecture of it. We stopped using that shop. But I've never forgotten that sentence, because it explains the entire flush category in 8 words. The fuel system flush is the most psychologically sophisticated of the 3, and I mean that without compliment. The pitch works because the damage it describes is invisible. You can't see inside your fuel injectors, you can't see your intake valves, you can't see your fuel rail. So when a service advisor says carbon deposits and varnish are building up in your fuel system, and this $149 flush will clean them out and restore your fuel economy, you have no visual counter-argument. The problem is invisible. The fix is invisible. The result is unmeasurable. It's a perfect sales environment. Here's what the EPA has required since 1995. Detergent additives in every gallon of gasoline sold in the United States. Not suggested, required. Every gallon you pump, from a major brand or a discount station, contains a detergent package designed to keep injectors and intake components clean under normal driving conditions. The standards were tightened again in 2011 with top-tier certification, and most major fuel retailers now meet or exceed that standard. Carbon deposits on intake valves are a real problem. I'm not going to tell you they aren't. On direct injection engines specifically, where fuel enters the cylinder directly without washing the intake side, carbon can build up over time and genuinely affect performance. This is documented. It happens. But a $149 in-shop flush does not reach the intake valves. It treats the fuel system downstream of where the problem actually lives. The service that addresses intake valve carbon is called intake valve cleaning, walnut blasting, or chemical soak. And it's a separate, more involved procedure that costs $300 to $500 at a shop equipped to do it right. When a shop sells you a fuel system flush on a car with real carbon buildup, you paid for something that didn't fix the problem. When they sell it to a car without the problem, you paid for nothing at all. What the flush actually is, a bottle of chemical additive, BG44K or a store brand equivalent, that retails for $15 to $25, poured into your fuel tank. You can buy it yourself at any auto parts store and add it directly. Pour it in, drive a full tank, done. That's the entire substance of the $149 service. The markup on that transaction is not a small number. The engine oil flush is the one I want you to take most seriously, not because it's the biggest scam, it's often the cheapest, but because it's the only one on this list that can actively damage your engine. The pitch. Before we do your oil change, we recommend an engine flush to clean out sludge and varnish from the old oil. They pour a chemical solvent into the existing oil and idle the engine for 10 to 15 minutes before draining everything. During those 15 minutes, your engine is running on oil that has been deliberately thinned with solvent. The viscosity drops, film strength drops, and your oil pump is still pressurizing every bearing surface, every cam journal, every turbocharger bearing in the engine, because idling still runs the pump. Modern engines are built to tight tolerances on low viscosity synthetics. That thinned mixture circulating through precision clearances for 15 minutes is not a neutral event. On a well-maintained engine, you're accepting real risk to remove deposits that weren't causing problems. On a high-mileage engine with genuine sludge, the kind from years of neglected oil changes, flushing that sludge into suspension can send debris through oil passages and clog them. The correct treatment for severe sludge is not a chemical flush. It's a series of short-interval oil changes with fresh, high-detergent oil that gradually cleans the system without releasing all of it at once. BMW, Toyota, Volkswagen. None of them schedule engine flushes in their service documentation. Blackstone Laboratories, the most respected independent oil analysis firm in the country, actively recommends against them as routine service. The engineers who designed your engine's lubrication system did not include it. Someone else added it to the menu. Decline it. Every time. Now the two that matter, and I want to give these the weight they deserve because the title promised them, and they've been waiting long enough. The transmission fluid change. This one is not a flush, a drain and fill. You drop the pan, Replace the filter if the transmission has one, and refill with the correct fluid specification for that exact transmission. The fluid specification matters more than most people realise. Using the wrong type destroys the clutch packs inside the transmission, and that damage is not immediate, not loud, and not obvious until the transmission starts slipping and the repair estimate arrives. Transmission fluid degrades thermally. Heat is what kills it. Automatic transmissions generate a lot of heat, and as the fluid breaks down, the friction modifiers that allow the clutch packs to engage smoothly wear out. You don't feel it happening. The shifts get slightly less crisp, then slightly rougher. Then one day the transmission slips under load and you're looking at $3,000 to $6,000 depending on the vehicle. The Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association has published data consistently for years, showing that the majority of premature transmission failures trace directly to neglected fluid. Not hard use, not bad luck, neglected fluid. The manufacturer's service interval, not the extended one they print on the window sticker to minimise perceived maintenance cost, but the one in the actual factory service manual, is typically 30,000 to 60,000 miles. If you tow anything, drive in stop-and-go traffic regularly, or live in a hot climate, treat it as the lower end of that range. Go to Blackstone Laboratories right now, blackstonelabs.com. For $35, you mail in a sample of your transmission fluid, there's a drain plug, or you can pull a small amount from the dipstick. And they'll send you a full analysis. Whether the friction modifiers are depleted, whether there's metal contamination from internal wear, and a direct recommendation on whether the fluid needs changing. That $35 report is the single best piece of data you can have before authorising a $150 fluid change or a $5,000 rebuild. It tells you exactly where you stand. The coolant change is the second one. And the reason most people skip it is that coolant, unlike transmission fluid, doesn't cause a dramatic failure. It causes a slow, invisible one. Coolant contains corrosion inhibitors that protect the aluminum in modern engines, the water pump, the heater core, the radiator end tanks. Those inhibitors deplete over time. When they're gone, the coolant becomes mildly acidic and starts attacking the aluminum from the inside. You don't feel that happening either. But a heater core failure on a modern vehicle costs $800 to $1,500, mostly because it lives behind the dashboard and requires significant disassembly to reach. A water pump on certain engines runs $400 to $800 for the same reason. A coolant change at a shop costs $80 to $130. The math is not complicated. Check the fluid yourself when the engine is cold. Pop the coolant reservoir cap. The fluid should be bright, green, orange, pink or blue, depending on the type your vehicle uses. If it's brown, if it's rusty, if there are visible particles, that system needs service regardless of what the mileage says. If it's still bright and the car is under 60,000 miles on the original fill, you're likely fine. Your owner's manual will give you the manufacturer's interval. Most land between 50,000 and 100,000 miles for modern long-life coolants. These two services will not be aggressively recommended at most quick lube chains. The margins are lower and the labour is higher. The flushes are more profitable, which tells you everything you need to know about why the menu looks the way it does. Here's how to use all of this the next time you sit in a service waiting room. Before you go in, pull your owner's manual. It's in the glove box, or searchable free at the manufacturer's website. Find the maintenance schedule, screenshot it, or print it. That document is the engineering team's actual instruction set for your specific vehicle. Everything else is a shop's instruction set for their revenue. When any flush is recommended, ask one question. Is this in my manufacturer's maintenance schedule? Not whether it's a good idea, not whether your car would benefit. Specifically, is it in the schedule? If they say yes, ask them to show you the interval and the page. If they can't, the conversation is over. For transmission fluid, use Blackstone's analysis before authorising service. $35 buys you certainty in both directions. If the fluid is fine, you saved $150. If it's depleted, you caught it before it became a $5,000 problem. For coolant, check it yourself. The cap, the colour, the condition. If it's bright and your mileage is reasonable, you likely have time. If it's dark or contaminated, schedule the service on your own terms, not because someone added it to an inspection sheet. The full breakdown for both services. Correct intervals by vehicle type, the exact questions to ask before authorising any fluid work, and the common upsells attached to each, is inside the Dealer Vault Guide, link in the description. Everything in there took me a long time to organise in one place, and I priced it so that it pays for itself the first time you decline a $150 service you didn't need. But stay here, because the next section is the one that changes how you walk into a shop permanently. When you walk into a service bay now, you're carrying something you didn't have before. Not just information, a framework. You know that the flush category exists because it's nearly impossible to disprove in the moment. The damage is invisible, the benefit is unmeasurable, and the service advisor sounds like they're protecting you. You know that the two services that genuinely matter are the ones least likely to be pushed because they require more labour and deliver lower margin. You know the question to ask, the document to reference, and the tool to use before authorising any fluid work. The next time you're in that waiting room and the service advisor comes out with a clipboard and starts running down the inspection items, you'll hear the flush recommendation and something will click. Not outrage, just recognition. You'll know what it is before they finish the sentence. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain what you know. You just say no, and the advisor moves on, and you pay for what your car actually needed. That's the entire shift. It doesn't require a confrontation. It requires knowing what they know, and they've been counting on the fact that you didn't.